Well, greetings everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever in the world you are today listening to this webcast. We're delighted that you've joined us here. This is Aaron Rudger from Keynote, and we are going to be talking today about real user monitoring and how real user monitoring can really help you to elevate the conversation between IT and the business. And so let's just kind of deal with a few of our housekeeping items. Hopefully we're coming in loud and clear for you today. We're going to be talking about web performance and why in the current environment that a lot of our customers, yourselves, as well as other folks that we talked to today, are dealing with complexity that makes it a real challenge to really drive web performance as a feature, as a requirement in your business, and how in that increasingly complex digital delivery chain, real user monitoring can be a powerful tool and weapon to help elevate the conversation and bring understanding and alignment between IT and the business. This is really all part of what we think is the value of understanding performance in context, because we think that really makes a difference to your business. And so we're also going to be just kind of talking about performance in context, not only as it relates to real user monitoring, which we think, again, is a very important kind of arrow in your quiver, but also synthetic monitoring, the active monitoring solutions that Keynote has been well known and hopefully valued within your organization today in delivering. We'll do a live question and answer. We're going to be doing it through the Adobe Connect interface today, so please do provide your questions to us. Submit them at any time during the presentation, and we'll get through as many as we can at the end of our prepared content. And any questions that we cannot answer, we'll go ahead and make sure that we get back to you offline to deal with any other lingering outstanding queries that we can help address. So today's webcast, we're scheduled for probably about 45 minutes or so in terms of content and a demonstration. That should give us enough time to deal with a lot of those questions, and we'll definitely be sure to get you out before the top of the hour. The webcast is being recorded, so we'll make sure that you'll be able to access that recording later, so you can share the content with your colleagues, disseminate it around your organization, and reference it on your ready schedule. You can use *0 at any time if you've joined us on the conference line, the audio conference bridge, if you are encountering any audio issues. Otherwise, of course, you're welcome to listening to our audio through your computer speakers using the VoIP option. And we will also provide you with access to the slides that we'll be delivering today, as well as a few additional helpful links that can help you get a little more information and understanding about Keynote solutions and real user monitoring in particular. Lastly, we do recommend that you view this in the full screen mode. You'll notice that there is a little icon in the upper right-hand corner of your Adobe Connect interface, and you can use that to both expand as well as collapse the interface so that you can view the presentation, and most importantly the demonstration when we get to the live demo part in its best resolution possible. But again, if you do want to submit questions, you will have to collapse that environment so that you can get access to the Q&A panel or pod. All right, so with that, I want to introduce our expert from our product management organization today, Abel Gonzalez. Abel's been with Keynote for a long time and has been helping to deliver both customer solutions directly out in the field, as well as drive our product strategy and our product delivery for our monitoring products. And Abel is going to start today by talking to you about real user measurement in performance management. So Abel, welcome to the webcast.
Great, thank you, Aaron. We wanted to talk about the real user role in performance management. As we move into larger channels with multiple devices, multiple experiences, we can see that customers are coming to the site in many different ways, through their desktop, through their mobile device, through their tablet. And within those mobile devices, there's a lot of fragmentation. This is just an example of the fragmentation just on the Android browsers themselves. There's a lot of research that has been done, and this is a very common slide where performance does affect your user behavior, your end user goals. The faster you are, the more chance you have at converting a customer, giving a specific view of performance, getting them to view more ads on your site. And what real user measurements does is bring all that information into context. When you have your synthetic tests that are monitoring the health and availability of your site as well as performance, having that real user measurement come in and provide the context of how many people are on your site, how many people are being affected, and how are those user behaviors changing because of the change in performance. Are your users abandoning? Are they exiting a specific page that is slow in your checkout process, or are they not able to log in and going somewhere else? At Keynote, having that synthetic as well as the real user monitoring together provides you that full view of context of performance with your business objectives.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned the context, Abel, and talk about just the diversity of, the kind of the modes and the channels of access to our digital assets, right? That we're all trying to ensure are delivered in a highly performant way. But the context piece is important, right? Because it does make a difference in terms of business relevance. And I think that that's an interesting thing that, one of our discussions that we had recently at a Velocity conference was around this notion of, the difference in how you think about and how you measure performance, both in terms of what kind of we as performance practitioners and performance enthusiasts, the way kind of we have really begun to kind of peel away at the different levels of the onion in terms of thinking about performance, but how that can kind of maybe lead to a bit of a divide in the way that the business understands the relevance.
Well, I mean, for the business, nobody gets excited about a second decrease in performance. They get excited about a 10% increase in sales or in ad impressions. That's what's going to get people excited and talking, not just the performance number in its raw form. We have to give it the context for people to really pay attention to that effect.
And so it seems to me that the really critical link that can help connect those two things is, what is the user doing? What is the user experience? And we've talked about user experience. Keynote was really, I think, quite in helping to move the notion of metrics around end user experience from what just gets flown over the network in terms of bits and bytes, which we had historically called page load time, to things like time to first paint and time to interactive page, and those are useful for user experience. But it's interesting because there's also a user behavior aspect to it that seems to be, I think, that really important connection point or mesh point between what the business is trying to accomplish. So I think that it'd be interesting to ask the audience, kind of maybe how they're thinking about some of these questions, right? And so what we want to try to do is to launch a poll, and hopefully everybody can see the poll. We've just moved the first set of questions into the Adobe Connect environment. And again, if you can't see a little square item on your screen that's a poll, feel free to minimize or kind of collapse your view so you can get access to that polling question. So the first question is really around whether or not you are, in fact, tracking key user behavior along with your web performance indicators. And so if you could just go ahead and submit your answers to that. We'll give you just a moment here, and we'll go ahead and maybe what we can do is just give you another moment, and then we'll go ahead and close the poll. Let's see what the results are. Let's broadcast those results. I think we need to just broadcast those results. And here they are, and it's interesting, right? So actually that's a really great sign. Most people are in fact tracking their user behavior right along with their performance indicators, and that's really great. We'd like to see that number, of course, be above 50%. So a follow-on question to this would be the kind of metrics, in fact, that you would be that you'd be looking at. So for those folks that were certain that they are tracking those measures of behavior right alongside of your web performance, if you could kind of help us with more specificity around the kinds of metrics that you're tracking. And for those folks that are not sure, maybe you can just kind of maybe hazard a guess. So if we can just bring that second polling question in. We'll just drag that in there. So hopefully now, again, you see the follow-up question, which is specific to the various and sundry kind of metrics that are fairly common in terms of measuring user experience. And this is a multiple choice question, so feel free to select more than one. Very interested to perhaps even follow up with you offline if you've selected the other category as to what those additional metrics are. That would be interesting for us in terms of our research and development of thought around this topic. All right, so I think we've probably got some good responses at this point. Let's go ahead and broadcast those. Well, some pretty even distribution, session length being perhaps the exclusion to that. So that's kind of an interesting takeaway here.
I guess session length is something that more of a media side would be tracking, given that the more ads you impress, the more money you make.
Right.
So I think that's a metric that gets to be more important for media. People that make their business by the content that they deliver on their site.
That makes sense. Yeah, good. Great. Well, this is great feedback, and hopefully you guys are this is resonating with you a little bit, because the interesting thing about all of this is that as Keynote is continuing to innovate, and we're going to obviously show you some of this new innovation that we're very excited to share with you today with regard to real user monitoring. But as we continue to develop our products and our solutions, we're really thinking about things in terms of the holistic optimization of your digital business and all the digital assets. And of course today we're really focusing in on performance, but really digital business optimization as a whole, we think, involves quality as well as performance, helping you to contextualize that with regard to comparisons, benchmarks, scorecards, if you will, and then really being able to help you leverage that information, that data, through an analytics layer that really drives insight, right? And today, many of you may be taking advantage of our performance analytics organization, our consulting team that actually helps customers on an engagement basis to do that. But we're really thinking about ways that we can accelerate and expand on that analytics vision to help you get even more insight from the data that we're collecting.
Having specific metrics around what really drives the customers to engage more with your site, buy more, do all of that. The way I think about it is, in your organization you have a lot of marketing, a lot of different people that their job is to bring that customer to your site. So you spend money, you do the campaigns, you bring them into the site, and once you have them there, these tools provide you the right information to make the best experience possible once they are in your site. You don't want them to be frustrated and leave when you have spent all this effort into getting them to that site.
Absolutely. So it's not only it's not only the right optimization, but it's the timing of it as well. And so I guess that's kind of a great segue into kind of the exciting part of what we want to talk today. So Abel, maybe you can introduce folks to our next generation real user monitoring.
Sure, and we're calling this next generation because it's part of the transformation of all of the performance tools that Keynote has been providing for so many years. And this represents the brand new platform that we are building to be able to deliver all of these insights, to give you performance in the context of user behavior, and then combine everything together so you have a holistic view of your customer's experience. With the new real user monitoring product that Keynote is launching, we have focused a lot on the real-time component, sub-3-second data stream from the person that visits your site to the moment that it's visualized in the dashboard. We've been working with our early beta customers that have been informing a lot of the development that has been ongoing, to be able to show performance as it relates to the user engagement metrics as bounce and exit. When you're talking about a checkout process, it's really important to see where your customers are exiting if they're not fulfilling that full transaction, and then look at that behavior in the context of the performance of every page that you see. One other thing that Keynote has been very mindful of in the past is looking at performance not just holistically, but also in the different channels that you're selling. So looking at the performance and behavior of a desktop user versus a mobile user versus a tablet user, and then having that performance visualized in the dashboard where you can start looking at all of your different channels, how they're performing and how they're behaving. That is one of the main goals of our real user monitoring product. The beauty of it is that it's built entirely on a RESTful API, so that it's open and extensible. You can visualize the data, you can slice and dice it any way you want in this dashboard, but you can also access that stream directly from any of your other reporting dashboards and be able to start using that data along with your other key performance indicators to get a full view of your customer's experience. So as I mentioned, looking at your performance across different channels, what are your OS users coming versus your Android versus maybe Windows phones. I've heard a lot of retailers talk about the value of a specific segment of users. If they're using a specific device that is a lot more expensive, what that segment is experiencing on your site versus other customers. And one of the things that we're very excited about is that tying that performance with the behavior. Building these custom paths so that you can see within a session that subsection of where you're either going to make a new customer or lose them, look at that transaction as a whole within that user session and looking at the performance of how long does it take that person to check out, what is the performance of each page that they hit during that checkout transaction. And you can do a lot of this with synthetic, but synthetic just gives you a specific path of what you believe that user behavior in that transaction should take. When you're looking at the data from real users, you're really getting that experience. Maybe you're having a page that is popping up that might not be accounted for, things like that can affect the performance and the experience of that user.
So that's an important differentiation. I think maybe we just want to make sure that we kind of convey here with regard to real user monitoring for our customers that are more familiar with our active or synthetic monitoring that we've been providing to them for a long time. For somebody who's not really familiar with real user monitoring, like how does it work? What's different about it?
Well, it works via a JavaScript tag that is deployed on a customer's website. And that tag takes advantage of the new interfaces for the browsers. So the browsers themselves are reporting all of that information to you. So you're not doing any specific Coding, it's just the browser interface brings all that information over. How long did it take to do first pane? How long did it take for the page to become interactive? And then those performance metrics are very similar to what we get in synthetic, because in synthetic we also track that time to interactive, time to first paint. And then we're able to look at that performance in all the context of real users versus that clean room environment where you have very good control of exactly what you're measuring.
Well, that sounds like a lot of data.
It kind of is.
Yeah, it seems like that would really generate a lot of information, especially for our high traffic customers who have very high trafficked websites and web
once
properties.
you start talking about individual resources, third-party content, all of that information, it starts becoming a really big data problem. And as I mentioned, what we're calling it next generation real user monitoring is because it's built on this new next generation big data architecture, which I am super excited about because I'm kind of geeky that way. But having that information flowing in real time, having correlations inside the database, and then having it all be built on an API that can be flexible and customizable, it allows us to collect all of this information, collect real users, collect synthetic, having it go flow in real time to our brand new big data architecture, and then being able to serve it out as part of the My Keynote portal, where our customers have been using for years, but also have that direct link into BI tools where maybe you don't want information that's proprietary to your business to get out there, but you still want to make those correlations of how are my end user business goals being affected by performance of a specific section of the site, a specific promotion, and being able to get that data and mesh it together in those BI tools is incredibly exciting and flexible for customers.
I think that the general trend that that I've heard, that I've witnessed, that I think we all have been seeing in the business is a move toward open platforms, right?
Mm-hmm.
and extensibility, because the power of the data that we're able to collect is amplified on so many multiples when you can really understand it relative to other data sources, and gosh, it seems like that would provide such great context.
Yeah, and it gets us to the point where third-party management is one of the big pain points of a lot of companies, because you don't have direct control over what they're doing. But now with having this data in a more open platform, you can start tracking and benchmarking all of your third parties across all of your different properties, across all of your different pages in a real instantaneous way, that if you're putting out fires in the middle of Black Friday, you don't want to wait an hour, because in that hour you could have already lost several $1,000s or millions of dollars. I think there was a metric that Amazon put out that each minute that they're down, it's several $1,000s.
$64,000, I think, a minute.
Yeah. So having that real time, and that's why we focus so much on that real time component of seconds, because at that point seconds do count, mm-hmm. whether or not you're going to hit your targets or not.
Right. Well, there's a lot of different ways we can also imagine, using the data that would be collected in this big data fashion, and we'll save that, perhaps, the exploration of that for a future Keynote Tech Talk. But
you know me, I can keep talking about data all day long.
No, absolutely. One thing that I just wanted to highlight was, it's really super exciting to have, I think, from Keynote, a new source of understanding, the performance of your user experience via your real users, right? But, it's also important to understand, well, what does that mean relative to my synthetic measurements as well, and the combination of those two. And I think we really believe that combining real user monitoring with active monitoring or synthetic monitoring just really helps you to understand the best of both worlds. And it gives you a level of analysis, it gives you a level of not only reactive triaging, right, of issues that come into that are being experienced, but also a proactive ability, a proactive stance. They empower you to have that proactive stance, to really use the data to help make changes in advance of them having a negative impact on user experience. So the combined real user with active measurements on this new open platform is definitely an important thing, and one we think is really unique in the marketplace today, with Keynote being such a strong player, obviously, in the active side.
Yeah. Coming back to something that I said, like, nobody gets excited about 1 second or 2 seconds, but when you put in the context of user impact, I was very excited when our engineering team came up and said, you know what, I have this really cool idea of how we can start measuring these things together. And one of the things that real user monitoring will allow us to do is when you get an alert, a synthetic alert, not only know what the impact is from a technical perspective, but having that real-time component of RUM, we can show you as well how many people were on the site attempting that transaction at the time that the performance degradation happened. So it's no longer, oh yeah, it's kind of slow. It's now, it's slow. Our exit rate increased from X to Y. And now you have context of the urgency of having to fix something that is metrics that the business understands, because they don't want people to leave, they want them to convert. So
it's really interesting. I love this visual. This is a great visual, Abel, that you've developed that helps to kind of just in a very quick, easy way conceptualize the two, right, and the power of working together. So exactly as you're just explaining, the breadth, right, of the real user data, having that be aligned through a focusing process that active data or synthetic monitoring data or measurements and tests provide, it's just a really powerful combination. And I think that really just nice and cleanly describes how we think about performance in context. So especially in the context of user journeys, which leads us to another poll question we just wanted to ask you guys. If you are today using Keynote to script and monitor multi-step transactions, so we're talking about, common transactions, that workflows in a business, like obviously shopping and adding something to a cart, right, and checking out, or if you're in financial services, maybe quoting a stock, right, mm-hmm. going through that process, or maybe if you're in a subscription business, signing up for various packages and exploring subscriptions. We could go on and on about the various business kind of workflows, so to speak, but if you're doing that today, how do you determine these user journeys? Is it based on what just seems to make sense from kind of a common sense standpoint, or is that prescribed by other people, other inputs within the business? How are you basically informing the determination of these business transactions? So if you could take a moment to just answer the poll, we'd appreciate that. I think we can probably maybe wrap it up and share the results.
Yeah, I mean, after spending 5 years in the field talking to a lot of my customers, there's really two ways that most companies do it. Is they look at the web analytics, just find what are the most transited paths. But one of the things that most people do is go with the flow of least resistance. So how can I get from point A to point B in the least number of pages, because maybe you have some budget to deal with. And that's usually how these transactions are done in my experience. And,
right.
And it's exciting to look at the real user monitoring, because now you have that shortest path possible from A to B, and then all of the, well, people are actually doing this, and maybe you're not monitoring a page that is causing additional issues for the customers, and so you get that insight.
You could find exceptions, so to speak, right, to the path, and use that to inform your definition. That's there's a lot of great synergies that can be taken advantage of here. So I think at this point, given that we're about a half hour into our presentation, it'd be appropriate for us maybe to just switch over to a live demonstration. So I'm going to go ahead and let you take over, Abel. You can drive from here.
Yes. So right now we're showing you the real user dashboard. This is measuring Keynote.com since we like to use our own products. And if you really want to experience the real-time nature of this, you can start navigating at Keynote.com and immediately see the changes in the live feed of your page views.
Wait, I can actually go to the Keynote.com. I'm going to pull it up on my phone. I'm going to do that right now.
And front and center, one of the areas that we're showing is the performance versus the bounce rate. And I think that's one of the highlights of being able to show performance in context. And each one of these widgets you can customize, look at the data segmented by the different channels. We're showing you some summary metrics, how many people are on their phone right now in the last 5 minutes on your site, tablets, desktops, how many active sessions, what is their average UX time. But then you can start drilling in and looking at this information by device type, by browser or operating system, and then start customizing it. What you're also seeing is the future of the My Keynote dashboard itself. We're moving into a fully API-based. So here you can add individual widgets. You can customize it and make it your own, so that you have the ability to create. Let's say I'm going to only focus on the mobile experience, and then give me that data for just for my mobile customers. So we're also able to segment and look at the data in each individual page view, look at the number of pages, as well as what their bounce rate and what their performance is. We can see here this one page has a 98.83 bounce rate, and that's actually expected because this is the scripting tool landing page. So if you're using Kite, that screen that comes up, we're tagging that, we're measuring, and then we know that that's mostly an informative screen, so we would expect that type of behavior. For our real user monitoring, we're tracking the session duration, we're tracking bounce, and we're tracking exit rate. And we've used the definition that Google Analytics has for all of these metrics, so that we're not creating something new from scratch. We're using industry standard definitions so that you can start comparing and looking at your performance as it relates to the different the different metrics over the page. So if you're in your checkout transaction, you definitely don't want to see those pages have high exit rates, etc. So in here, all of these widgets we can modify, we can move and position other places. And here we have our globe that shows us exactly where people are accessing your website from. Obviously, the more traffic you have, the more exciting this dashboard becomes. Keynote.com doesn't command that level of traffic, but we have several beta customers that have traffic in multi-million pages a day, and we're able to capture that information in real time with the same speed in the new architecture.
You know, as part of the marketing team, I do definitely take this as an indictment on our ability to generate awareness and interest in our website. So I have to take this and work on it a little bit. So this is great data. Of course, you can't take action, you can't make changes without having insight and information.
So again, we can modify and look at the performance by country, performance by browser. All of these dimensions we can change so that we have a dashboard that fits your needs and your metrics that you're tracking.
That's great. It seems like the flexibility here is really it's wide open, and it's easy enough too, that it's not something that you have to spend a whole lot of time and energy kind of trying to figure out how to do a configuration of a specific widget on the dashboard. They look pretty straightforward.
So if you have any questions on the specifics of the dashboard, I encourage you to send those over via the Q&A interface.
Is there any limit to the number of widgets maybe that people would add, or
no,
pretty
they're
much do whatever they want? Yeah.
correct. They pretty much, as we saw, we can have multiple dashboards, so you can have a desktop dashboard versus a tablet dashboard and have all of your different metrics viewable in that context.
Right, right. Great. Well, it looks really powerful, and I've definitely been hearing good things from the beta. We've gotten good feedback from the customers who have been participating in that. So actually, maybe what's really good is to transition into kind of like, where are we with the project, and how can customers kind of start understanding or getting their hands on this?
Yeah, so where we are is engineering and myself are not getting a lot of sleep lately, because we are coming up on our GA date of December 18th. So we're launching this. We've been working very closely with a handful of our beta customers that represent leaders in their fields with a lot of traffic, and it's been great to be able to do weekly drops and modify the dashboard based on what they want to see. We're launching this next week. December 18th will be available for all Keynote customers. Something that we're also excited about is, if you're currently a Keynote customer, you get this access to this product for free for up to the first 1 million page views. So if you want to take it up for a spin, look at it. It's part of the synthetic monitoring suite of products that you can afford yourself of. And then in 2015, we're moving very quickly. We're looking at and having more enhancements, tying the synthetic and the RUM data together even better, looking at the resource timing. So I see one of our, someone raised their hand.
Live interactive audience participation. We love it. Thank you very much.
So
hopefully the issue is not something necessarily on the screen, but we'll definitely get over to you there. See if we can address our question.
You can probably just use the Q&A box, because I don't know exactly how to unmute a specific line. When do you expect page grouping to be available? So page grouping, we are putting that into the system now, and it should be available to be visualized in January for transaction tagging and grouping.
Great.
We're also looking at capturing resource timing, so that you can manage all of the third-party tags and third-party content from the real user data as well.
So the general takeaway is we're still in the beta period now. Would there be any reason why somebody at the end of the day today couldn't just raise their hand and say, hey, I want to go ahead and try it right now?
Yeah, no reason at all. And we want people to use it, and we want the feedback. That's one of the main drivers for us. Is as we launch this new product for Keynote, we're very good at knowing our synthetic side. With RUM, we've been very grateful for our customers that have really helped us to build this product.
Yeah, so it's bulletproof, and we feel good coming into our general availability release date that this is going to be a great product that's going to add a lot of value. Maybe what we can do is just kind of talk about, in terms of taking that action, right? If you did want to understand and really take advantage of the power that real user monitoring can provide to you, what I would suggest is that you definitely take an opportunity to interface with your primary contact at Keynote. That might be your account manager, it might be your customer success manager, it might be somebody in our consulting organization. Give them a quick call or just shoot them over an email and let them know that you're interested. We can, as Abel suggested, move you into the beta program today still. If you want to wait until the GA time, that's fine, but what we would actually recommend is that you at least get into the beta and really understand it as a proof of concept and take advantage of the fact that the beta comes with really no strings attached, right? And just take advantage of an opportunity to really give the product a spin.
The only string attached is that you probably will get myself or some engineering calling you to get some feedback and information from your experience as you use it.
Yeah, that's always a happy conversation, and it involves you, Abel, for sure. So yeah, and then lastly is that we do have some really interesting incentives that our sales organization is really excited to share with you that basically relate to our year end. Of course, we're trying to close our fiscal year on a high note, and we want to really help kick off your experience with real user monitoring in a very positive way with some of these incentives. We didn't really talk about tag management, and you mentioned the tag earlier in terms of how we accomplish getting taking the measurements, but maybe you could just talk really quickly about the whole tag management process.
Yes. So with the help of our beta customers, we've also reached out to the tag management solution vendors, where they're adding the Keynote tag as part of their library. So it'll be very easy for someone to just switch it on using Insighten or Telium or Signal. Keynote, we use Google Tag Manager. It took all of 2 seconds to deploy. But if it needs to be a tag that is approved and vetted by the tag management vendor, we're currently working with them to be able to be added to the library. However, just like any other tag, you can just deploy directly onto the system.
And I know that you guys have been doing a lot of measuring and testing of the tag itself too, to just ensure that it doesn't arbitrarily impact performance, right?
Well, if we're the monitoring company that's telling people that they need to take control of their tag, our tag is not going to be the one that's slowing you down. We've done some benchmarking. We've also have distributed the tag around the world. So if someone is accessing your site from Sydney, they'll be able to get a tag locally and have that beacon locally in country without having to go back to the U.S. or other locations. So we've heard from other companies that have benchmarked our tag and other tags as well that performance is it's under 100 milliseconds. It's asynchronous, so it doesn't really impact the user experience. Yeah, so we've had very good success with that.
That's great. Well, so I think probably now it would be a good time to look at responding to some of the questions that have come in. I definitely encourage you, if you haven't had an opportunity at this point to ask a question, go ahead and submit that through the Q&A panel. We'll make sure that we address all of them as quickly as possible.
And I already answered the first one that came in, which is how does the tag impact performance? So
good deal.
Under 100 milliseconds is what you would expect.
Okay, and I think what I'm going to do here is switch over just a moment. Hang on a second, bear with us. Maybe you can just, was there another question that came in as I'm kind of working through the document here?
Yeah, there's run with the APM system. And the answer is yes. So we talked a lot about the openness of the system. So being that it's a browser-based run, instrument anything, you don't have to modify your current APM implementation. It's all data that's being collected from the user experience side, where information such as the performance of third parties, all of that get reported, and then with your APM system, you can use the Keynote REST interface to bring that data into the system or and visualize it that way.
Great. And do we have any other questions about the? No? All right.
No.
Okay. Well, great. Well, I think it's always good to end early, give you guys some time. So what we've done is we've just provided to you a couple of additional resources that you can follow on after the presentation. And of course, these will be also available even in the recording. So you should be able to have access to all of these documents as well as links. The presentation slides, as you can see, are in the download today's presentation box or pod. And then, of course, you can click on the additional links in the Learn More section. So with that, I want to just thank you, Abel, for presenting today. This is great content. Hopefully everybody got a really good flavor for the power and value of Rum. And with that,
thank you to everyone also for joining us.
Yes, and thanks to the audience today for joining us. Again, we've recorded this, so we'll follow up with you offline on how to access all these different assets. We appreciate your time and attention, and if there's any other questions, again, we do highly encourage you to reach out to your account manager, your customer success advisor, and with that, we'll go ahead and close the call. Thank you again for joining us.
Thank you.